Hello to all. How are you? First of all, I made a mistake, and I'd like to apologize. I didn't. When we first started talking about this, the first text that popped into my mind was the gay science, and there are reasons for that. But then, the gay science is a big book. We would have never finished. What's more, we would have never gotten to the best parts. Someone else suggested Zarathustra. Again, we're not going to finish, we can't finish Zarathustra. But I'd really like to advocate that we do. The Vittamo book is by far the best introduction to Nietzsche's thought that I've ever read. But I was uncomfortable even initially. Even when I first suggested it, I was pretty uncomfortable with it, and I'll tell you why. I was always that pretty strange kid. My triumvirate as high school moved along: Rimbaud, Nietzsche, and Jim Morrison. These guys were my heroes. I've been reading Nietzsche for a very long time. I haven't been understanding Nietzsche for a very long time. Although I can tell you, the very first quote of Nietzsche's that I memorized, from human all to human, truth. Convictions are greater enemies of truth than are lies. I learned that I was probably in the 11th grade. Wow, it just blew my mind. I figured out rather quickly, even as young and intellectually immature as I was, I figured out rather quickly that Nietzsche was a different cat. And I can tell you right now, I've been doing philosophy for a long time. Nietzsche is by far the most misrepresented philosopher in the history of Western philosophy. And in contemporarily, or just so. Derrida died in 2009. Boy, people fuck him up pretty badly too, but for very different reasons. Take for example the notion of the death of God. That is probably, more than likely, that's the only thing that most anyone is going to know. Your layman's going to know about Nietzsche. And God is the fucking metaphor there. Certainly he means God, but he doesn't believe in God to begin with. So, it's absurd to say that God died. And this is what leads Heidegger to say that Nietzsche is the last metaphysical thinker, right? He basically is announcing the death of grand narratives, the death of any sort of philosophical project or extra philosophical project that will, by which we can anchor meaning. He's saying, look, we don't have any, there's no moral law above. There's such systematic philosophies as psychoanalysis and Marxism. They failed us. These grand narratives are dead, and Nietzsche knew that very early on. Given that, where are we left? I'm not going to go off on that tangent, but it makes the point that he's extraordinarily misunderstood. Well, I guess another point is the issue of his misogyny. Nietzsche can certainly come across as misogynistic. Then again, he has some gorgeous passages on marriage, on children, and on women. You can give me a topic, pretty much any topic with which he dealt. Give me 6 weeks, and I'll make him look like a total dick. It's not that hard to do. One of the reasons, and this is something that's really important that I was going to talk about even before I was convinced that I would try to persuade you guys, was Zarathustra. The will to power. There are some really biting, really negative aphorisms in Nietzsche. A lot of them come from the will to power. The Will to Power is the #1 selling Nietzsche book in the United States of America. Oh shit, I'm sorry, no it's not. It's not a goddamn Nietzsche book. Nietzsche did not write the Will of Power. He did not structure it. He had nothing to do with it. He hadn't spoken a word in 9 years when the book was published. That book was cobbled together by Elizabeth Nietzsche, Peter Gast, and Rob Steiner for 2 reasons. Elizabeth was trying to hold it in her mouth for the Nazis, right? You know, she wanted recognition. Hitler wanted to like Nietzsche. But there are a lot of reasons for Hitler not to like Nietzsche. Nietzsche despised the German spirit. And there's a really easy way to check that one out. Simply pick up a copy of Beyond Good and Evil and look at the section that's entitled On Nations and People. Oh my God, he excoriates the German spirit. It's really bad. Nietzsche's no fucking Nazi. And Nietzsche is not nearly as harsh a thinker as many people believe him to be, precisely because of the will to power. This is entirely unjust. It struck me as I was thinking about this the other night that the primary vocation of a philosopher or any thinker is to make mistakes. My library in there has a shelf that's got about 80 composition notebooks on it. And there's some really good things in some of those notebooks, I'm sure. But most of it is garbage. It's me in the process of trying to figure out how I want to think. It's not me sitting down proclaiming truths. The aphorisms included in the Will to Power were cherry-picked from notebooks that cover about a 20-year span, which Nietzsche explicitly chose not to publish. Wonder why? There's intellectual abortions. My notebooks are full of them. So, anyone who may, and I don't think you guys have this issue anyway, but if you happen to have any sort of preconceived notion about Nietzsche as an especially virulent philosopher, or one who's rather hateful, it's not right. And we'll find that out in Zarathustra. I mean, after all, how does it start, right? He sails in. He shows up at the town. There's a tightrope walker. The crowd is jeering him. Zarathustra is not. Zarathustra is admiring him. This is his symbol for overcoming, right? And here comes the jester. Knocks him off, kills him. After a bunch of shit, Zarathustra throws him over his shoulder, walks him into the mountains, talking to him the whole way, and finally he puts him to rest inside the crook of a tree so that the animals will not get to him. Zarathustra's not a bad guy. This is not only an extraordinarily sophisticated philosophical work, it is one of the greatest works of poetry in the history of the West. It's hard to deny that it is, and if you haven't read it, it's a pleasure. Here. I wonder where I am here. I'm going to find a very... Oh, shit. I know what this is. That's not what I was looking for. Yes. Oh, wow. There's just so... There's so much here. You know, I won't quote. You guys can read all this anyway. I had someone mention, you know, Zarathustra can be frustrating. Because of it, because of the symbolism. The symbolism can be rather dense, and it is one of his later works. It's published in Vittamo. Wow, I can't believe I don't remember this. It's been a while since I've written on Nietzsche, and if I'm not writing on it, probably lost my dates. God bless on me. Let's go to the chronology. Okay, so it's written right after the Gay Science. In fact, Zarathustra is mentioned for the first time in the Gay Science, and I am going to take the time to quote what I think is the greatest passage in the history of philosophy. No one need agree. And actually, now that I mentioned that, let me say this too. I read Nietzsche for well over 15 years before I read the first secondary text on Nietzsche. I've never taken a class on Nietzsche, and that's a conscious decision. It's really easy to use this guy for your own agenda. And at times it's appropriate to do so, right? I mean, after all, you're either going to be a historian of philosophy, or you're going to find philosophers who can who you can cherry. You don't want to cherry pick. That's not the right word, but from whom you can borrow in order to back up your own voice, right? It seems to me that if that's not the purpose of philosophy, if philosophy is not a sort of conglomeration of different points of view, put together in novel ways, along with the sort of historical inheritance that we hold here, that if, you know, much of which has come from these philosophers we've read, then it's dead. I mean, who the fuck wants to read another history of philosophy? Nah, I don't think so. I just stopped doing it. And the other thing about Nietzsche, of course, is, you know, the existence of these notebooks, and some of which are published. There are 3 volumes published thus far. But like The Will to Power, keep in mind, these are writings that Nietzsche made an explicit decision not to publish. True enough, around the end of his life, he was considering a book along the lines of The Will to Power. And other than flattering the Nazis, the second thing that Gast and Elizabeth Nietzsche wanted to do was to present Nietzsche's philosophy in a systematic manner. This guy's not a system. He's no Hegel. I mean, Hegel rules the goddamn day. Everybody thinks they need to have a systematic philosophy. That's the nature of philosophy, in fact. I mean, part of what Nietzsche's doing is showing that it's not. He writes some about undertaking a project like this, but it is absolutely clear from his notebooks that he ends up rejecting that idea. And The Will to Power is structured in a very strange way if you know Nietzsche's works. So, I guess one thing I'm doing is warning you away from The Will to Power. I've never read it. I haven't. I'm never going to. I own it. You know, I consult it at times, particularly, you know, when other authors refer to it. But it's not a book that I'm ever going to sit down and read. That's 1,056 aphorisms that I just don't fucking need. Zarathustra is very important, it seems to me, because in part because there's Nietzsche's really concerned about the transformations that have occurred in the last half of the 19th century. And quite early on in Zarathustra, he tells people, he says, "You're more ape than man." This idea of the last man. I referred to the last man in the post that I put on Messenger. The last man, that's what he's calling for here. Men have become entirely mediocre. They're herd animals. Nietzsche's no herd animal. In fact, this is a quote from The Art of Living by Alexander Nemes. One of his first books was a brilliant book on Nietzsche. This is one of the better secondary works on Nietzsche. It's called Nietzsche, Life as Literature. This particular book right here is called The Art of Living, Socratic Reflections from Plato to Foucault. And, of course, one of the chapters is on Nietzsche. This is a really important point, and we'll see this at the very end of the second book in Zarathustra. Nietzsche basically says to his disciples, "Get the fuck away. Go think your own thoughts. Then come back to me. See if there's something you can contribute to me." That's it's very interesting, right? He's like, Zarathustra no longer wants to be a leader. Zarathustra wants to be alone again. He enters his second solitude at that point. And this is just a fantastic insight on Nemes's part. He says, individuality, however, is threatened not only if you imitate someone else. Okay, let me try this again. Individuality, however, is threatened not only if you imitate someone else, but also in a darker, more dangerous manner if others imitate you. Nietzsche is remarkable among the philosophers of the art of living because he was so conscious of that danger and disturbed by its possibility. Wow. Righto. That's really interesting. And that, that'll be gone into to a great extent in Zarathustra. To me, the setup to Zarathustra is, again, it is the most disturbing and liberating thought, perhaps, in the history of philosophy. Kant and his all I know are the starry skies above and the moral law in my heart. Shut the fuck up! I mean, come on, man. That's bullshit. It feels good. I'd love to be a Kantian. It'd be great if it worked. Unfortunately, you start applying universal laws and you run into injustice very, very quickly. At any rate, this is book 4 of The Gay Science. This is the second mention of eternal recurrence in Nietzsche's work. The first is earlier in The Gay Science, and very quickly on eternal recurrence. There are two prevailing schools of thought on this. One is that it's an ontological doctrine, well, more precisely, a metaphysical doctrine. That, something, an Eastern sort of thing, whereby we're born, there's this endless cycle of births and deaths. That seems to me to be a really naive way to read this. What's more, given Nietzsche's spirit, it seems far more consistent to read this as, and I'm going to use a term that I've seen people flip out over when I use this term in this way, but I'm perfectly well ready to defend it. I believe that this constitutes Nietzsche's ethical imperative. And I'll read this here, and then I'll link it to the podcast site. And if you will indulge me, I'll also include a poem that I wrote, which is based on this idea. Beautiful language, and really, it could be terrifying. Or it could be that I have never heard anything more sublime in all my life. What if someday or night a demon, and this demon here, this is the Cartesian demon, right? This is the demon who fools Descartes. Sort of a philosophical insight, one of those things that most non-philosophers can't be expected to pick up on. Okay. What if some day or night a demon were to steal into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, this life as you live it now and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it. But every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh and everything unutterably small or great in thought, or great, and everything unutterably small and great in your life will have to return to you all in the same succession and sequence. Even this spider and this moonlight between the trees, and even this moment, and I myself. The eternal hourglass of existence is turned upside down again and again, and you with it, speck of dust. Would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke thus? Or have you once experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more sublime"? If this thought gained possession of you, it would change you as you are and perhaps crush you. The question in each and everything is, do you desire this once more and innumerable times more? Would lie upon your actions as the greatest weight? Or how well disposed would you have to be to yourself and to life to crave nothing more fervently than this ultimate, eternal confirmation and seal? Wow. I was probably 17 the first time I read that. I certainly didn't... Yeah, I fell far short of understanding the full significance of it. But it stuck with me. Oh my God. It haunted me, really. I would lay in bed and think, what the fuck is this? That's one of the most... That's one of those philosophical passages that's, been with me for a very long time. And took me a long time to figure out. And then finally I thought, holy shit, this is it. What if what he's saying is, hey, we should approach everything we do in such a way that, given this hypothetical, we'd say, hell yeah, bring it on. You are a god. Never have I heard anything more sublime. The very next aphorism is the very first mention of Zarathustra, Incipit Zarathustra. And his next book is Zarathustra. I am more than happy to go through Vittamo's book with whoever would like to as well. And hey, you guys, I'm just one cat here. You guys can raise up and you can storm the Bastille. We can do Vittamo. We don't have to touch Zarathustra. So I'm going to let you guys tell me. Like I said, it was my fault. I made a mistake. An egregious mistake. I would never, ever teach a secondary Nietzsche to a class. I understand I'm not teaching here, right? This is a very different situation. Praise be. I love it. People who, this is going to be fantastic. I haven't read Nietzsche with yeah, it's going to be great to see what you all have to say, whether it's on the commentary or on Zarathustra itself. At any rate, let me know, and we'll go from there. Zarathustra, by the way, may be found on the internet most anywhere. Now, the translations are going to be a little bit different, but if we could agree upon a translation, I'll download that also, and sort of certainly the language has gotten a lot better. If you happen to want to buy it, please don't get the portable reader. Indeed, in general, if you can, avoid any translation by Walter Kaufman. I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time here. I can tell you more about Walter Kaufman later. We owe him a great debt and so forth. But the best imprint by far is this Cambridge text in the history of philosophy. They've redone almost everything. Beyond Good and Evil is still a Kaufman translation. No, actually it's the Gay Science. I'm not sure why. At any rate, I hope you guys don't mind this format. It certainly, I think it'll save you a whole lot of reading. I tend to be able to stick to the point more when I'm talking, and I'm afraid I'm about to get my shoulder cut on, which is going to prohibit me from typing. So yeah, this could work out very well. One more thing, I think it would be fantastic if we could all find a let's say one night a month, and I mean just off the top of my head, either every second or third Wednesday. We don't have to commit. Let's narrow it down to that. We don't have to commit to the second or the third, right now, or each month. Or actually, it'd be great if we could do it twice a month. But I don't know. That'll depend on you guys. But we could set up in Google Chat. We could all be on the screen and take turns being, asking questions and being interlocutor. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I'd love the give and take of that anyway. Well, I don't have to elaborate. Really glad we're doing this. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. One way or the other. So, okay. Everybody let me know what you think. And let us say yes. Let us affirm it. I think I'm out. Peace.